Hello again. Now today I'm going to do my review on Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, the Crystal Bearers for the Wii. It's been a long time coming, so I hope this works. Now, it seems that the Final Fantasy universe has been around forever, which it has, and probably will last forevermore, which it should. So with so many great and one or two not so great games within the main series, there's bound to be millions of ideas that were just too risky to be placed in a main game title. Which is where, in my opinion, the Crystal Chronicles spin-off series takes place. Now, this opinion is very much put right with the Crystal Bearers, as I got the feeling that every turn of this game, that all that was happening during the game was all part of a maelstrom of unused ideas. On the face of it, the ideas behind this game seem revolutionary to the Final Fantasy franchise, but are sadly, in large part thanks to the Wii controls, horribly executed and held together with masking tape. But for me, it's not all doom and gloom, as the game does feel very fresh and quite rebellious in nature and the story compared to other games. This game sees you playing as a young Clavat male named Leo, who is a crystal bearer with the power to control and manipulate gravity. Very good. Which is actually pretty lackluster in the game, as he is caught up in a conspiracy between a race of people thought to be extinct and a corrupt government general who wants to keep that race extinct and rule over the entire kingdom. What a surprise there. With hit and most likely missed mechanics, terrible short cutscenes and very well put together set pieces, comes a game which does good things very good and very bad, and bad things very disastrously. Presentationally, the game tries to be a bit different on the face of it by kicking off an intro that screams, "I'm different, deal with it," and carries on by trying not to make friends with you, which is a welcome change from other Final Fantasy games. It's produced and played like a game that can properly look after itself, with no need for babysitting by a mere player, which is good for attitude and atmosphere. You're dropped in, told where to go in a 5-second cutscene and just left to it. If you know what you're doing, then you can control the game's attitude, but half the time you're stuck running around in circles with absolutely no clue what the fuck you're doing. The styling is very modernised for a Final Fantasy game, as you play as adolescents instead of adults. A very refreshing thing about the game's story is that there's no backstories or stupid connections between each of the main characters, which is exceedingly great, as you get to solely focus on the main story without being sidetracked by the rolling of your eyes. Overall, presentation gets a quite rewarding 7 out of 10. The attitude, atmosphere and focus are fresh and a welcome feature to the Final Fantasy series and should be stuck with in the future, but the lack of direction in the game itself makes it very frustrating to play. Moving straight on to graphics. Graphically now, for a Wii game, the Crystal Bearers is very pleasing on the eyes. Easily the best looking Wii game I've played. There's a remarkable pop in though, as at first you're running through an empty forest and all of a sudden an entire village pops up, but that's understandable I suppose for a Wii game. Water features are spectacular and landscapes are vast and fleshed out beautifully in colour. Character models for the main characters are top drawer, as are the NPC models surprisingly. Cutscenes are pleasing on the eye and a lot happens on the screen at once, which is good. Frame rates and animation are done really well, and Crystal Powers having some of the best animations on the Wii that I've seen so far. Frame rate issues only appear when you're fighting like 14 enemies and about 7 of them are on the screen at the same time. And that hardly ever happens, which is a good thing, so there's hardly any frame rate issues. The graphics for me gets a incredibly fantastic 9 out of 10. For a Wii game, it's a beautiful game. It seems that Square Enix's graphical winning streak won't be stopped anytime soon. Sound now. The sound in this game is very nice to listen to, but it has the most limited soundtrack ever in a game ever. There are only like 5 or 6 places, give or take 1 or 2, that you'll ever visit, and each has a single track that plays over and over and over again. And then there's the battle music, which is just one track, and some different scores during cutscenes, tallying up to about maybe a dozen different tracks, which sounds alright, but for this game, like a Final Fantasy game of this calibre, it's not nearly enough. Having said that, the songs are nice though. Nice enough to the point that I started to hum one of them even when I wasn't playing. So that's just the one song though. Voice acting is hit and miss though. Leo's voice is very good for his character. Kaise's voice is very generic. Belle's is too annoying. Jagran's is too cliche. Amida Italian's voice is fantastic. Altea's voice is very good for her character, and Sid's voice is original enough but annoying. Sound for me gets a 6 out of 10. The lack of variety is annoying in soundtrack, but some of the voice acting makes up for that. Gameplay. Now, gameplay, certainly for the first couple of hours, the controls for your crystal abilities are quite enjoyable to perform. But after that, when the game gets serious on you, the controls will quickly leave you beating yourself to death with the nunchuck, as you've already stabbed yourself in the stomach with the remote. An annoying thing about using your powers is that during a cutscene, Leo will, with ease, lift an incredibly heavy things like an entire airship. And when you try to pull something like that off by lifting, like, say, a big box in the game, it takes ages even to lock on. And then the responsiveness of the Wii remote when you fling it, that's just, it's horrendous. Or maybe that's just me, as I don't have Motion Plus. When you're not trying to do the only thing you basically can do, which is use your abilities, the controls are fine. But it's only running, turning the camera and dodge rolling. In between the fighting, you're left running for miles and miles and miles just to be shown a 5-minute cutscene, then having to run all the way back just to come back again. This happens constantly throughout the game and is incredibly annoying. Gameplay gets a 5 out of 10 for me. What at first seems quite enjoyable soon becomes quite disastrous, and progressing throughout the game is so repetitive and really boring. Lasting appeal now. As with all Wii games, the Crystal Bears doesn't have a dedicated trophy or achievement system, but what it does have is in-game medals, and boy, there's a lot of them. This, however, is the only thing to come back to, and the little mini-games that have you getting high scores from completing them and expects you to rebeat are lethargic, empty and really boring. So why would anyone, and there's no multiplayer feature, so why would anyone want to do them again just to beat themselves? Because no one's got to see it. No one's got to see it unless you show someone. Another thing you can do is collect items to synthesize to create patches for your jacket, but there's no explanation to why you would do this. I only found out about this by chance. Even then I had no clue what the hell I was doing. And next thing I know, I've given away my most valuable items to create a picture of a fucking prison. No, really, a fucking prison. So after that, lasting appeal gets a 4 out of 10. There's nothing of extra value in this game. Although it has in-game medals to collect, they don't really make a difference. And the synthesizing for patches on your jacket doesn't make any sense. Now, for the final verdict. If you're a massive Wii fan, then absolutely play this game. It's one of the best Wii games out there by far. But if you're a huge Final Fantasy fan and a fan of incredibly long RPG games, then fundamentally avoid this game, as it took me literally by a minute, over 8 hours to complete. So considering all other factors, the final overall score of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, the Crystal Bearers on the Wii, 6 out of 10, which is a decent rating, meaning that this game has shortcomings that keep it from achieving classic status, but still boasts enough credible ingredients to make it good in smaller doses. Well, sound cut out in the video, I don't know why, but I hope that with this and this structure that my reviews actually make sense and are quite helpful and recommend people to play games. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, thanks again for watching. If you do, it's always appreciated. Warms me to see the actual people watch. And as always, wait for it. Down below, comments, much appreciated. And, you know, any advice, it's all welcome. Thanks again for watching. Take care. Have fun. Cheerio.